I'm Marilyn Sturgeon and I'm Director of the NCS Colour Centre, and we represent for the UK and Ireland the NCS system, that's Natural Colour System, which is an international colour standard. NCS is based on how we see colour, so not on how colour's measured, but on how we see colour. We all see colour in more or less the same way, and our colour vision depends on 3 pairs of colour receptors, so black and white, yellow and blue, and red and green. And these 6 colours are the elementary colours of NCS. So in NCS, all colours are described with reference to those 6 elementary colours. NCS originates in Sweden, and the Scandinavian countries have a long history of development of colour theories, and originally NCS dates back to 1611 with the theory of a physicist called Forsius. We can see, apparently, about 10 million colours, but to describe these colours would be impossible. We have, I believe, 11 unambiguous terms in English to describe colour, but clearly that doesn't get you very far with 10 million colours. So with NCS we describe colour in terms of its hue, its position on the colour circle, so its relationship between yellow, red, blue and green, and its blackness, so its relationship to black and white, and by the amount of chromaticness the colour has. So a typical NCS notation might be 10, 30, Y90R, so that's 10% perceived blackness, 30% perceived chromaticness, and it's yellow with a 90% resemblance to red. So quite simple once you get your mind round that one, and it makes it possible to describe not only the 1950 standard colours in the NCS system, but actually to describe any colour you can see. The words that we use to talk about colour are actually quite confusing sometimes, because there's a crossover between scientific terms and the terms we use in everyday conversation. In NCS, lightness would be taken to mean visual lightness, and the lightness that we see is literally what we see. And to take an example there, perhaps, here we have a scale of white to black. So there are 18 colours of neutral grey on that scale. And midway there is 5000 N, so that's halfway between white and black. And that has a visual lightness of 0.5. But interestingly, it has a light reflectance value of just 0.26. So light reflectance value is not the same as visual lightness. Light reflectance value is a measured value. So it's an instrumental value. It's not quite how you see colour, but it's a very objective way of determining the amount of light that's reflected from a surface. And it's an instrument that does that. It's not an intuitive judgment. Specifying colour for Part M is actually quite tricky. It takes a lot more time than specification would have done in the past, because an architect, a specifier, will need to know the light reflectance values of all of the products they use. But when you're first working on a concept, you're not thinking in terms of numbers. You're talking, you're thinking in terms of how the project's going to look. the visual appeal of it. And in order to reasonably work on concepts, something like the atlas here, which has a page for each hue on the colour circle, it also has a scale of light reflectance value on each page here, so that when you're choosing colour, you can actually see pretty well what the light reflectance value is. And the light reflectance value lines on this scale vary from page to page because of the wavelength of the colour. So whereas with yellow, the line will be down here. By the time you get round to blue, the line has moved up here. So the lines move according to the wavelength of the colour. So it's not at all intuitive. You really need to look carefully to know what you're working with, and actually to check the numbers as you go along. Some products are much more flexible. So with paint, for instance, you can get any of these colours. You can get 1950 colours. But with other products, you might be much more fixed. A carpet colour, for instance, will be chosen partly from availability on a product swatch or product specification, and the colour range might be quite limited, and your choice might also be limited by the practical things like how dirty it might get and so on. But your specification then might actually work from something like the carpet colour, and your other colours, laminates, doors, wall coverings and so on, will be much more flexible. But I mean, certainly the carpet or flooring colour is a major factor in specification.